The day my wife abandoned me in the hospital, it wasn't only my body that shattered. The doctors assured me I'd recover. They explained the crash would leave marks, but healing was possible. What they failed to mention was how to mend from the treachery that wounded me far worse than any physical harm. My name is James Carter. I once believed love could endure any storm. Then I opened my eyes in that stark white hospital room and saw my wife Emily paused at the doorway, gazing at me as though I were a stranger. Her opening words were icy and distant. "I can't handle this, James. I refuse to spend my life caring for someone who's disabled." Her gaze stayed fixed somewhere else as she spun around and left, fingers laced with our neighbor Greg's. The same man she'd been turning to for comfort over recent months. The one who'd lingered at the fringes of our marriage, but now boldly claimed what belonged to me. She walked away, leaving me stranded in a bed I couldn't escape, responsible for our 2 children with no strength to resist. I couldn't pursue her. I couldn't even rise. For months, I remained motionless. Yet I refused to surrender. I poured my energy into the children. I concentrated on the insurance settlement, the one Emily never suspected I'd quietly initiated. And when the check for $5 million finally arrived, I had transformed into someone entirely new. My physical wounds closed, but my heart turned to stone. When she eventually returned, pleading for another chance, I simply offered a calm smile. I wasn't about to hand her what she craved. This time, she would have to work for it. For the initial weeks, I ignored Emily's phone calls. At first, my silence mirrored the way she'd ignored me during my lowest moment. Then came her handwritten notes, apologies scrawled on pages, acting as if the woman I'd vowed to love hadn't vanished the instant my strength failed. I read every single one, but each note only reinforced my certainty. She didn't truly regret her actions. She regretted losing the comfortable existence I provided. The children didn't mention her for those early days. They were still too small to grasp abandonment. When questions eventually surfaced, I answered gently with honesty. "Mommy is away for a while. She'll return when she's prepared." And deep down, I knew she would. By the time she appeared at my front door, I was fully ready. She stood outside, wearing that same sympathetic mask she'd shown when I lay powerless in the hospital. "I'm sorry," she murmured, her tone heavy with practiced sorrow. "I didn't know what else to do. I've made terrible choices, James." I studied her for a long moment. I allowed her words to drift away as I chose my response carefully. "I'm glad you're here," I replied evenly, holding the door open only a crack. "But there's something you need to hear. You no longer get to determine how this chapter concludes." She blinked, then attempted to enter, but I kept the door steady. "You can't simply stroll back in as though your actions carried no weight. There's now a cost attached." She furrowed her brow, uncertainty flashing across her face. "Don't be concerned. You'll receive what you desire, just not in the manner you expect." I stepped outside and shut the door, leaving her standing alone in the downpour. 3 days passed without any contact from Emily. Then, predictably, she returned without warning. This time she held a bouquet of roses, forcing a smile that never touched her eyes. She still behaved as though she held the upper hand. "I've reflected on everything," she began, extending the flowers toward me. "I realize I ruined things. I never should have walked away, but I'm prepared to repair the damage. Can we simply put this behind us?" I refused the bouquet. I didn't even blink. "Put it behind us." I echoed her words. "Is that your belief? You assume everything can revert to normal? That I'll pardon you simply because you arrive bearing flowers?" Her expression wavered, but she pressed on. "I was terrified, James. I didn't know how to cope with it all." Enough. The single word emerged sharp and final. Anger had faded. Pain had dulled. I was simply finished with the pretense, the schemes, the charade. You didn't merely desert me in that hospital room. You chose another man you believed offered a superior future. And now that I've regained my strength, you appear as if none of it occurred. Tears welled in her eyes. "I committed a terrible error," she whispered. "I was mistaken." "I'm certain you were," I answered, stepping aside to allow her entry. "But here's the reality, Emily. Forgiveness is no longer mine to grant. It's mine to decide what comes next. And you only join that future by proving yourself worthy." She fell quiet, uncertain of my meaning. That was when I placed the envelope in her hands, the one she would wish she'd never touched. Emily's fingers trembled as she tore it open. The instant she scanned the contents, color drained from her face. She lifted her gaze to mine, bewilderment and dread swirling together. "What are these?" she breathed. I observed her closely as she absorbed the documents. Papers that would alter everything forever. They included divorce filings, a petition for sole custody of the children, and crucially, a claim tied to the insurance settlement. Her voice quivered when she looked up again, pleading. "James, no, you can't mean this. You understand this concerns the children, right? You know what we built together is worth saving. We can repair it." I retreated a step, crossing my arms to maintain distance. "You had zero hesitation leaving when you believed I was worthless, lying helpless in that bed. Yet now you return because you've spotted the money. Because you assume sweet words will win me over once more." I watched realization dawn as her mind raced for solutions. But the moment had already slipped away. "I understand your mindset, Emily," I stated firmly. "You considered me naive. Thought you could exploit me whenever it suited you, and I'd simply accept the role of the loyal husband." She shook her head, lips trembling. "I was mistaken. I fully admit it, but we can salvage this, James. We can reclaim what we once shared." I stayed silent for a beat. I witnessed her unravel, yet remained unmoved. This wasn't about pardoning her. This was about reclaiming power. "You abandoned me at my most fragile. Now the power rests with me." Her eyes widened in shock as I added calmly. "And that $5 million settlement? It's already secured in accounts for the children. You will never see a single cent." The papers slipped from her grasp as she sank to the floor. But compassion had long since left me. Not anymore. For several moments she remained there, surrounded by scattered documents. I could hear her ragged breaths, her struggle to contain the sobs that finally broke free. "James, please," she choked out, voice fracturing. "I know I failed terribly. Fear overtook me. I wasn't thinking clearly. Please. I want to make amends. I'll do whatever it takes." I offered no reply. I simply stood watching her collapse, feeling absolutely nothing. She had chosen her path. Now she faced the outcome. I could have declared my indifference. I could have turned and left forever. But I had a different plan. Something far more fulfilling than mere dismissal. I moved to the living room, retrieved my phone, and dialed my attorney. "It's finished," I told him. "File everything. Full custody, permanent separation." He responded without pause. "Understood. I'll proceed immediately." I ended the call, returned to the kitchen, and sat at the table, quietly drinking my coffee while Emily wept in the corner. She glanced up, face twisted in disbelief. "You're actually going through with this? You're going to strip everything away from me?" I met her gaze steadily. "You stripped everything from me the moment you walked out, Emily. When you opted to desert me and the children for your own convenience, you forfeited any place in our world." Her expression morphed into fury. "You'll regret doing this," she hissed. "I'll make certain you pay for it." I allowed a small smile. "No, Emily. The regret belongs to you." I rose, leaving her in the kitchen, stepped outside, and locked the door behind me. The following days blurred into legal documents and meetings. I exchanged no further words with Emily. No explanations. No responses to her attempts to reach me. My sole focus remained protecting my children and shielding their future from her manipulations. She failed to grasp it. Her initial response was entirely foreseeable. She contacted her attorney, naturally. Letters arrived. Threats of court battles followed. But none of it mattered. Not any longer. Not after the documents I'd already submitted. I'd ensured the divorce case was ironclad. The custody request was unbreakable. And the insurance money? Secured in a trust the children would one day access, but Emily would never touch. Not even a fraction. Several days later, her lawyer phoned. She wished to negotiate custody terms. She wanted to discuss conditions. I had no interest. "My decision is final," I informed him. "And the court has already begun its review. I've moved forward." He attempted the usual tactics, applying pressure, but I refused to engage. I disconnected. The next call, however, came directly from Emily. "I'm truly sorry," she said softly, almost begging. "I made a grave error. I believed I could manage alone, but I was wrong. Please, let's try to resolve this." I remained quiet for an extended time. Then I answered, "I'm finished repairing you, Emily. I'm repairing my children. I'm repairing my own life." Silence stretched. Then a broken sob. "You're no longer my duty," I stated flatly. and neither is the future you attempted to steal from us. I ended the call, the weight of those words settling like truth rather than bitterness. I was no longer her rescuer. I had become her consequence. By the next week, the chaos had quieted, at least outwardly. The media remained unaware of the $5 million payout. No one yet knew I'd ensured Emily received nothing from it. But word would spread eventually. It always does. What truly counted was my children. Mila adapted gradually. Some evenings she inquired about her mother. I responded truthfully yet kindly. The last thing I wanted was for her to feel torn between parents. On Friday evening, while sorting documents at the dining table, a knock sounded at the door. It wasn't Emily. It was the private investigator I'd retained weeks earlier, the one tracking Emily's movements since she'd left the hospital. He placed a thick file before me. "Everything you requested," he said. I opened the folder. The photographs were sharp and unmistakable. Emily at a luxury resort in the Bahamas with the man she'd chosen over me. They'd spent extended time together. This wasn't a fleeting affair. I reviewed the receipts. Hotel bookings. Lavish dinners. What struck hardest was the final item, a reservation at an upscale restaurant, dated the very day I finalized the trust setup. She hadn't merely lived a secret life. She'd been plotting her departure with him, while portraying herself as remorseful to me. Anger didn't rise. Only clear, icy understanding. I collected the materials, went to the kitchen, and forwarded everything to my attorney with a brief message. "Ensure this reaches the appropriate parties. It's time she confronts what she's been evading." At last, her reckoning had arrived. When the legal proceedings concluded, I had already constructed a life independent of her. The courtroom session passed in a haze of arguments, her attorney spinning desperate stories of transformation and appeals for the children's benefit. But I needed no words. The proof did the speaking. Her infidelity, the hidden spending, the abandonment, the deception. I sat composed as her counsel struggled against irrefutable facts. When called upon, I looked directly at the judge and stated simply, "I seek no revenge. I'm here because my children deserve more than a parent who vanishes when circumstances become difficult." The judge ruled swiftly. Full custody awarded to me, with only supervised visits permitted for Emily. She received no claim to the family trust, no financial assistance from me, and no place in the existence I'd restored. I exited the courthouse without a backward glance. I required no final words from her. I needed nothing more from her at all. That evening, as I tucked Mila into bed, I watched her features soften into peaceful slumber, calm and secure once more. My children were protected. My home was secure. And for the first time in ages, I no longer felt like a fragment of who I once was. I stood exactly where I belonged, where I had always been meant to stand. The doorbell chimed late that night. It was Emily. She stood outside, complexion ashen, eyes brimming with remorse. "I realize you're furious," she said, voice unsteady. "But can we please speak? I made a terrible mistake. I'm so sorry." I regarded her, not with rage, not with pain, only with quiet resolution. "Goodbye, Emily." I closed the door gently, and for the first time, true freedom settled over me.